I don't think that in the galut that we're in right now, there's ever a better or a bigger time to speak about the topic of ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. Which, by the way, gentlemen, we just read it. Lo tikom, lo titor. Don't take revenge. But rather, ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. You should love your friend kamocha, ani Hashem. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does the Torah want? And what benefits does Klal Yisrael receive? Rabotai, we're sitting here in this galut for almost 2,000 years. And if we can just get this one straight, we're out. Nothing to talk about. Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. I want to start with the word l're'acha, your friend. You know, the Vilna Gaon tells us this incredible yesod, and you heard this yesod from me many times. The first time that the Torah ever uses a word is the true meaning of that very word. It's the essence of that word. Do you know the first time the Torah used the word l're'acha? The first time was by the story of Yehuda, where there he did not know yet that Tamar was the girl that he was with. He thought that it was someone of ill repute at the side of the road. And Yehuda had to send payment to this woman in order to get back the eravon, in order to get back what he placed by her as a guarantee. We all know this story. Very difficult story to discuss. Very difficult story to learn. And even more so to teach, by the way. But nonetheless, says the Pasuk, Yehuda sends this Ish Hadulami, and he sends him with money to go pay the woman in order to get back his eravon, what he left as a guarantee. Now this is an incredible thing. The Torah says that when Yehuda comes to this guy, the Ish Hadulami, the Torah says he came to him, he was re'acha. Says the Gaon, I want you to think about this for a minute. The first time Torah uses the word re'acha wasn't just describing a friend. But here Yehuda's in a situation that's probably the most embarrassing situation that a guy could ever find himself. And now he has to go and he has to actually confide in someone and tell them that he went and did something that's so beneath who he was. So he went to somebody that he trusted, that even if he tells him the worst thing about him, he'll still be loyal to him. Says the Gaon, you know what you see from here? A true friend is somebody that knows all your flaws and still loves you. That's the first friend that the Torah describes, Re'acha. So you just got a definition, the Gaon's definition of what the word Re'acha means, but not just that, it's Ra Lecha. He knows the bad about you, and he loves you anyways. He knows everything about you. He knows your flaws. He knows your negatives. Re'acha, ra, licha. He knows the bad about you. And in spite of all your bad, and all your skeletons in the closet, and all your secrets, and he still stands by your side. And he still loves you. Now that's a true friend. Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. Just like this guy loves you, in spite of all the bad he knows about you, and he loves you anyways, kamocha. Kamocha. So too, have the good eye. Love people for their good. We're human, for heaven's sake. We're not angels. We're not robots. We all have our difficulties, challenges to overcome. But nonetheless, You see the good only. That's what it means to be a true friend. Someone who knows everybody, everything about you, and he loves you anyways. So now let's start the share. Says the Arizal HaKadosh that when a person begins to pray every morning, not only does he start his tefillah with kavanah, but he starts with something first. Says the Arizal, this incredible mitzvat aseh, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, is something that one needs to actively accept upon himself on a daily basis. And you know when he does that? Right before he begins to pray in the morning. At the beginning of Shachrit, you open up any one of our Sidurim, and you'll see right before Akedat Yitzchak, you start the Shachrit with the L'Shem Yehud, L'Shem Yehud Kudsha B'richu, Ushchinte B'tchilu Rechimu Rechimu Tchilu Li'achad Hashem Yudkei B'Vavkei Shem Hashem Yisrael. Hine Anachnu Ba'im L'Tpalel Tefilat Shachrit Shetiken Abraham Avinu Shalom. And then right after that, what do you say? My gosh, you just said L'Shem Yehud. You're gearing yourself up, announcing what your kavanot, what you're looking to start to do. I am starting to pray Shachrit. And then does he start to pray Shachrit? Says the Arizal, no, not yet. Not yet. Before you start the daven, before you start Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avotenu, before you start Akedat Yitzchak, first you say, Hareini mikabel al atzmi mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha v'hareini ohev et kol echad m'bnei Yisrael kenafshi u'modi. והרי אני מתפלל, אני מזמן את פי לפלל לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Before you start to daven in the morning, before you start that shachrit, first you accept upon yourself mitzvat aseh ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Now you can pray. Now you can start the daven. But not before this. Now you can start the daven. But not before this. Says the Arizal, what is the pshat? Why do we make you take upon yourself the mitzvat aseh v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha before you start to daven? What is the inyan? Says the Arizal something incredible. He says, listen to these words. I'm going to read it to you inside. This is found in the Shar HaKavanot. Again, the Mar Mekomot from tonight's share comes from a shmooze, from a Yedid Nafshi, Reb Daniel Gladstein. Hashem should bless him. Hashem should give him siyata d'shmaya to continue to do the great things he does for Klal Yisrael. To be Marbitz Torah is unbelievable what he does. His Mar Mekomot are beautiful. Listen to this Mar Makom. Says the Arizal HaKadosh, Shar HaKavanot, in Berkat HaShachar, he says, these are the words, I'm reading it to you inside. He says, V'yichaven, before you start to pray, Tzarich sheikabel alav mitzvat ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha v'yichaven leheov ekol echad m'bnei Yisrael kenafsho. Ki al yidei zeh, listen to these words, because if you're going to accept upon yourself to love every Jew before you start to daven, ki al yidei zeh ta'alet filato, your tefillah will go up, klula, mikol tefillot Yisrael. Your tefillah now, through the loving of Klal Yisrael and crying out that you love every Jew and you connect to every Jew with a certain achdut, your tefillot now connect to the great body of the tefillot of Klal Yisrael. It goes up as one massive tefillah of Klal Yisrael. V'tuchal la'alot lema'ala ma'ala. It's now able to reach, your tefillah can reach so much higher. V'la'asot peri. And now your tefillah can give fruit. Now your tefillot will be answered. Wow, powerful. So he says, before you start the daven, You take upon yourself, and at that moment, when you cry out your love for Klal Yisrael, you actually attach yourself to Knesset Yisrael, and your tefillah becomes one with all the tefillot of Klal Yisrael. That's not just praying with a minyan anymore. That's being a part of a great perfection. You're completing the part of a great whole. And now that perfect powerhouse tefillah of Klal Yisrael goes all up together as one force. It's unstoppable force. That force, says the Arizal, is la'asot peri. That gives fruits. Those tefillot are answered. Wow. Amazing. So we just learned how to connect your tefillah to the collective body of all of the tefillot of Klal Yisrael. And what a force that would be. And I want to clarify that this is much bigger than just a minyan. When someone davens with a minyan, it's unbelievable. Till now, before the minyan came along, I was one person. And me as one person, I only carry the zechuyot of one person. So my tefillot only have the merit behind it of one person. But now, when I go and put myself amongst 10 people, so now I have 10 people's zechuyot, and I have the Shekhinah drawn down on the heads of Eidah, which is, we know, the Gemara Berachot, 10 people. So now I have Hashem's presence with the merit of the tzibur rather than the merit of the yachid. That's the great mile of praying with a minyan. But here, the way I just explained it to you, that's a mila of ribui. I started out as one guy with only certain zechuyot. Now ribui, amarbe the zechuyot, al yedei the 10 people that draw down a bigger zechut, ashrat shechina. But all it is ribui. And that's an amazing power. But the Arizal is coming to teach you something bigger than ribui. When you go and you're mekabel on yourself, before you start to pray, it's not that you're placing yourself in the collective body of the tefillot of Klal Yisrael that now it's amongst ribui. No, it's much bigger than that. Did you ever look under the hood of a car? It's pretty busy under there, isn't it? My gosh, what's going on under there? You can get dizzy. You see the carburetor and the engine and the starter, and the wires are crisscrossing, going back and forth like a maze. If you pull out one part of that car, you say, look at what's going on under here. So busy. Would it be so terrible if it's missing one part? What's the big deal? I just pull out this thing. He rips it out. Closes the hood. More room. Gets into the car. Nothing. Ein kol ve'ein oneh. Makara. But it had so much. There was such a ribui there. Yeah, but even with the ribui, still, when there's something missing, it's still incomplete. So you could have a ribui, but you don't have yet perfection. Says the Arizal, do you want to complete Klal Yisrael? Do you want your tefillah to complete the body, the collective body of the tefillot of Israel? Take upon yourself ahavta l'reacha kamocha before you start to daven, and that is mashlim, the collective tefillot. It's literally a fragment of a bigger, complete body that all pieces come together and now creates a perfect, complete, whole tefillah of Israel. That tefillah is unstoppable because that's complete and perfect. It's more than ribui. It's kibbutz. It's mikabetz. Together all the broken pieces to be mashlim, a shleimut of one. And that comes in front of Kudsha Berichu, that comes up in front of Kisei HaKavod, and none of the Mekatrigim, none of the Malachim can touch that, because Lo Chaser Klum. It's not missing anything. It's a perfect tefillah. Think about it. What do the Malach, how do the Mekatrigim, God forbid, Chas Shalom, how do they stop tefillot from making it up to Kisei HaKavod? They start examining the tefillah. This one doesn't have all the kavod. This one, the guy was thinking about his own kavod. This guy wasn't really so much into he wasn't thinking Pirush HaMilim. They were looking for flaws. So though you have ribui with those tefillot, but you have a lot of zchuyot with it, you have 1.5 million praying, but there are flaws. Says the Arizal, I'm going to give you a secret of how to bring not just ribui, bigger than that, shleimut. I'm going to bring the bimkabetz, all the tefillot of Klal Yisrael together as one perfect unit, and that is untouchable and unswattable. No one can swat it down. No one can block it. Its perfection screams its destiny. Kisei HaKavod. Wow. That's an uptight in the Arizal. Rabotai, this sounds like Kabbalah. The Ari? And you would say to yourself, okay, for Kabbalists this is good. When they start Shachrit, I'm sure that all the great Mikubalim, they start right after the L'Shem Yehud. I'm sure right after that they say, Hareni mikabel al atzmi mitzvat aseh shel v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha v'hareni ohev et kol echad b'nei Yisrael kenafshi u'ma'odi. Beautiful. And then they go to Akedat Yitzchak. But me, Rabbi, am I a Kabbalist? Come on. Do you know that this is codified already in Shulchan Aruch by the Magen Avraham, by the Chaye Adam? All the contemporary poskim, they bring the concept that it's great to start your tefillah with the Eitzah, with the concept of the Arizal HaKadosh. First be mekabel on yourself, this great concept. And then go and daven, and you'll see perot, fruit, from your tefillot. Wow. I want to share with you something that I think is fantastic. Let's touch upon a little bit the remez, the secrets behind this pasuk. And where does the Ari get this from? So the Chida in Dvash Lefi, the Chida mentions something that at first glance is already wow, but like the Chida, he ups the ante and blows you away the second time. Could you imagine that? It's like one of those 1-2 punch wows. Listen to this. Says the Chida, the word ahava is gematria. Let's do it. Aleph, he, bet, he. 13. Ahava gematria echad. 13. Ahava ve'ahava, when you have two people that love each other, two-way street of ahava. So I got 13 and 13. What am I back to? 26. Ani Hashem. 26. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. When you love him and he loves you, ahava and ahava, you know what that equals up to? Ani Hashem. It ends up with Yud Kei Vav Kei. It equals up to 26. So right off the bat, you see that if you want to reach the Ani Hashem, what do you start your tefillah with? The Kabbalah. Be mekabel on yourself that you love Klal Yisrael. And be mekabel on yourself, Yafta l'reacha kamocha, as they love you, you love them, and vice versa. I love every Jew, and every Jew loves me. I have ahava ve'ahava, and sure enough, now I have the recipe to be able to reach Ani Hashem. Oh! Now start davening. Now your tefillot are bound for the right destination. Beautiful. Mamash, beautiful. But if that didn't already wow you enough, which that already enough is your money's worth, but listen to what the Chida comes back on the second paragraph, and he adds something off the charts. Listen to this. He says in the name of the Shach, amazing. He says, Everybody knows that there are certain names of Borei Olam that represent a behavior of judgment. Elokim. Elokim is judgment. How much is the gematria of Elokim? 86. We all know that the number 86 is a big number of judgment. Elokim is 86. Says the Chidah something amazing. Listen to this. Ve'ahavta l're'acha. When you love your friend, kamocha ani Hashem. You flip kamocha into ani Hashem. Kamocha is gematria 86. Kamocha is gematria Elokim, judgment, din. You want to be mamtik the dinim? You want to bring hamtakat dinim? You want to flip that Elokim into Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is mercy? Ve'ahavta l'reacha. Go and show Ahavat Yisrael. Go and start your Tefillot with the Kabbalah ve'ahavta l'reacha. And you know what that's going to do? Kamocha, it's going to flip. Kamocha, which is 86, into Ani Hashem, which is Gematria 87. Ani Hashem is one up of the judgment. It's mamtik the judgment. It takes over the judgment. It one-ups the judgment. Again, ve'ahavta l'reacha. When you love another Jew, you know what it does? Kamocha turns into Ani Hashem. Kamocha, Gematria 86, judgment, is flipped into Ani Hashem 87, which is Hamtakat Dinim. Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the mercy of Hashem. It's unbelievable. So if you want to do Hamtakat Dinim, if you want to be Mamtik the Din, Chas v'Shalom, there might be dinim, judgment on a certain person. But you know what that means? I don't know if you guys understand this. God forbid, Chas v'Shalom, if there is a judgment on a person, when that person starts to pray, his tefillot go up to Shamayim, the angels lock all the doors on him. We don't want to hear from this guy. We don't have to be nice to this guy. Shamayim has gzerot v'dinim on this guy. The behavior that Shamayim is mitnaheg with this person, lo aleinu v'lo aleichem, we should never know from this, is gzerat din. Din means judgment. You don't deserve. And therefore, this guy could be davening from here till doomsday. They locked the doors on him, like what they did with Menashe. You know the famous story? He was davening. What did the angels do? They locked down the whole heaven. The whole heaven they locked down. We know the end of the story, Hashem's mercy. Hashem went and drilled a hole in his kisei hakavod to allow his tefillot to come up. Okay. That's tshuva. We're not talking about tshuva now. But we're talking about a guy that chas v'shalom, there's gzerot and dinim. He goes and prays, and hits the ceiling and falls down. Says the Arizal, I have an idea for you. My friend, chas v'shalom, if there's dinim on you, step one, be mamtik the din. You remember what you do Friday night? When you're about to make kiddush, you drop those 3 drops of water inside your wine. You know why you do that? Yain is din. Yain is din, we all know that. Hamtakad dinim, we drop those 3 drops of water, it's mamtik the yain. It's mamtik the din. It's called miziga. It's mamtik the yain. It turns judgment into mercy. When you start to daven, make sure you're starting with mercy. Because the whole concept of tefillah is Rahmana Libaba'e. It's all about pouring your heart out. It's all about Rahmanut. It's all about mercy. So how do I make sure I'm on the path of mercy? You start with Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, says the Arizal. That's going to open up the highways in heaven. That's going to open up all the sha'arim, all the hechalot, all the doors. So like this, you're not dealing with hitnahagut of judgment, God forbid. But like this, you're going to daven, and instead of them locking the doors on you, you're going to flip kamocha, which is 86, judgment, into Ani Hashem, which is mercy. Amazing. Hamtakat dinim. Incredible. Rabotai, I want to share with you an amazing mashal that the Pele Yoetz brings in the name of the Baal Shem. He brings this mashal, and I'm hoping that this really hits home by you, because this mashal really says it in such a sweet way. You know, every mashal in Klal Yisrael always starts with a king, right? So there was a king, and there was a certain bird. Long story short, I'm not going to go into the whole mashal because our time is tight. But there was a bird that the king wanted to capture. It was in a tree. So the king basically told his servants, his soldiers, I want you to get that bird for me down from that tree. But it was up on a high tree. So what did they do? They took a big guy. They put him at the bottom. And then on top of him, they put another guy on his shoulders. And then of course another guy on his shoulders. And then of course another guy on his shoulders. And they went all the way up the monkey ladder. And they were almost to the top branch where the bird resided. And the idea was, the game plan was, that quietly, well, I don't know how you do this quietly, but quietly, they were going to reach the top branch and nab the bird and grab him before he realized what's going on and bring him down to the king, the one who wanted the bird. Now, while they're going up on each other's shoulders and they're reaching almost to the top branch, suddenly, the guy on the bottom, the big guy, he decides, he's tired. What would be the big deal? I'm going to go off for a 5-minute break, get me a drink, take a quick lig outside, come back in, and then we'll continue so this guy decides to walk away. The minute this guy decides to walk away, what do you think happened? It wasn't the bird that was flying, right? But these guys were already airborne. All of them, pop-lop. Says the Baal Shem, this is the way tefillot are answered. When you daven a tefillah and you pray to Hashem for a certain bakasha, you just put on yourself a base, a foundation for that tefillah. And then when you pray again, there's another tefillah based on that, and another one on that, and another one on that, and another one on that, and it keeps going up and up and up. But that's if you're building your own chain of tefillot. But if you listen to the Arizal, listen to this, guys, you don't hear what I'm about to tell you now. Chap, even the smallest guy in the world, if he's standing on the top of a mountain, at that moment, he's the tallest on the planet. He could be the smallest in the world. But when he's standing on the top of a high mountain, he's the tallest man in the universe. Says the Arizal, I'm telling you a secret, listen to me. The Baal Shem Tov just explained to you that the way tefillot works is it's a piggyback concept, where one tefillah piggybacks on the next, which is on the next, on the next. Sometimes you'd have to pray hundreds of tefillot until you get it answered, because it took that long until finally the chain reached its way with its foundation of this particular bakasha all the way up to Kisei HaKavod. And once it reaches the bird, Kivyachol, once it reaches Borei Olam, that's when your tefillot are answered. Says the Arizal, I'm going to give you an elevator. I'm going to give you, listen to this, open your hearts, this is unbelievable. I'm going to give you an elevator. I'm going to give you a shortcut. Because that which the mashal was a guy praying on his own chain, his own building, his own one on top of the next. But if you take upon yourself, before you start praying, so where is your tefillah being placed upon? Not your last tefillah, but on the tefillot of Kol Klal Yisrael. That means that your tefillot began on the top of a high mountain. And that's why, says the Arizal, those tefillot very quickly are oseh peri. Those tefillot very quickly are answered, because they already had such a fantastic head start, because they're standing on the shoulders of the giants of Israel. Fantastic, beautiful. Mashu, beautiful. And if that's the case, I bet you that tomorrow morning you're going to start with V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha before you start the Akedat Yitzchak, before we start the daven. because this is something that it's like unbelievable. You want to hear one of the most amazing remez that you'll ever hear on a concept. To me, when I heard this, I was literally blown away. The Sefer Pardes Yosef, he says, this very concept of the Arizal was already spoken in Torah by the Avot HaKadoshim themselves. That without V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, your tefillot are going nowhere. Do you hear that? And this is very scary to me. We're living in a time of such galut, where the reason why we're still here is because of the violation of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. The first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of the 3 cardinal sins. But in spite of the fact that those averot was so terrible, 70 years later, the Bet HaMikdash was rebuilt. The second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed only on one avera, sinat hinam. And now it's not 70 years later. It's not even 700 years later. It's close to 2,000 years later. And we're still waiting for this avera to be fixed. It's a scary thing to know that there's such a connection and correlation between V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha and tefillot being answered when we're in a time that our galut is for the reason that people don't get along. Because says Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, he says, you can go into shul and you can say to yourself, Hareini mikabel al atzmi v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha v'hareini ohev kol echad b'nei Yisrael kenafshi u'ma'odi. And meanwhile, while the guy's saying it before davening, in his heart he's mumbling and telling himself, just wait. Tefillah's over, I'm going to go to that guy and tell him, if he opens that window again in shul, I'm going to throw him out the back door. I'm legit. I'm tired of telling him already. He opens that window one more time, I'm going to throw him out the back door. And then he says to himself, if the shamosh goes over to the thermostat one more time and he raises the heat in this place, I don't know what to do. I'm going to get the guy fired. I don't know what to do. And if the chazan can't go quicker, this guy doesn't stop this guy. I got to get to work. This guy is on the local train. I thought this minyan was express. No, sir, here the guy is, inside, ripping everybody in the world. And wait, when I get home, I'm going to tell that guy, he blocks my driveway again. I know he's extending the back of his house. I'm going to have the DOV here down tomorrow, and he's going to slap him up with work orders and fly. Says Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, my friend, this is not lip service. If you start your tefillah with Hareini mikabel al atzmi mitzvat aseh v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and you're having those thoughts in your heart's heart, telling yourself, wait till tefillah is over, I'm going to get this guy, I'm going to shut that guy down, I'm going to kick that guy out of shul, and who does this guy think he is? Who are you fooling? You're talking to the bochen lebabot. You're talking to Borei Olam. Borei Olam's laughing at this guy. He's been mekabel on himself. Mitzvat aseh deoraita v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and he's mumbling under his breath, cursing everybody out. Says Borei Olam, says Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, that's not a guy that his tefillot are going anywhere. Because if you can't get along with people, your tefillot aren't going anywhere. That's scary, because we're in a time that we're still in galut, because we have a hard time fixing sinat hinam. We have a hard time coming to ahavat Yisrael be'etzem. And if that's the case, where are tefillot going? Can I prove this to you? Are you about to hear something that's going to blow your living mind? We all know the story of Mechirat Yosef. I hope you don't cry on this. I cried the first time I heard this. Mechirat Yosef, the brothers, they make a tribunal, and through Bedin they paskin Yosef's rodef v'chayab mita. They throw him into a bore of nichashim v'akravim to see be'emet if the judgment is correct, if he's a real Baal Lashon Hara. Yehuda tells them, you cannot kill him. Yehuda, right? Yehuda tells his brothers, you cannot kill him. You cannot kill him. Rather, sell them to the Ishmaelim. And they listened. But what was the words that Yehuda said? You ready for this? Ma betza. Ma betza. What are you going to gain? Ki narog achinu. If we're going to kill our brother. Ma betza. What do you gain? Im naharog achinu. If we're going to kill our brother. What do you gain? Says the Pardes Yosef. Ma betza. You know what Yehuda was saying? The word betza actually is Rashi Tevot. Boker, Saharayim, Erev. What do you do morning, afternoon, and evening? Shachrit, Mincha, Arbit. Says the Pardes Yosef. You know what Yehuda was telling his brothers? Ma betza. What's with your Boker? What's with your Tzarayim? What's with your Erev? What's with your Shachrit? What's with your mincha? What good is your arbit? Im naharog achinu. If you hate your brother, your tefillot isn't going anywhere. You hear this? Unbelievable. You expect Hashem to accept your tefillot and you can't get along with your brother? You expect Hashem to accept your shahrit, your mincha, your arbit, and we need so much, Rabotai. We're living in times that everybody has a pekel. Everyone has tzarot. Everyone has packages. Lo aleinu, v'lo alechem. But without, if we would lose, God forbid, the zechut, the privilege, to be able to enter the armon of the melech, malchei melachim, and stand in front of him, kivyachol, face to face in an amidah, if we would lose our power of tefillah, chas v'shalom, do you know what happens when no longer we have hakol, kol Yaakov? Do I have to finish the pasuk for you? Do you know what happens if the kol Yaakov is down? What goes up? The yadayim yedei Esav. What knocks out our tefillah? Says Yehuda, I'll tell you what knocks out our tefillah. Ma betza. What good is your boker, your tzarayim, your erev? What good is your shahrit, your mincha, your arbit, im naharog achinu? If while in the morning you're saying, Hareini mikabel al atzmi, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, I'm going to kill this chazan. This guy, doesn't he know I got to get to work? This guy's playing with the thermostat. That guy keeps opening the window. This guy keeps shaking the table. This guy doesn't stop coughing. Believe me, as a rabbi, I hear this all the time. And they're praying. They're praying. Says Yehuda, ma betza. Where's your tefillah going? Nowhere. Im naharog achinu. Rabotai, this is a vicious cycle. How do you expect to get out of galut if you can't pray? How do you expect to pray if you don't get along with another Jew? It's a vicious cycle. You know what's amazing to me? By Ritzicha doesn't say this. Avodah Zarah doesn't say this. Gilu Arayot, it doesn't say this. Yes, by Gilu Arayot it says, V'shav me'achorecha, Hashem turns away from a person, but it doesn't say that he loses the tefillah. You still have that koach tefillah. You have no idea what this koach tefillah is. It stands birumo shel olam, ubnei adam mizalzelin ba. We have no idea the power of one tefillah. We have no clue. But that power is lost if we can't get along. That's what Yehuda told his brothers. And it made such an impression on them that they were maskim. And that was after they paskin that he's a rodef. And that's after they held that halachically is chayamita. But that taina was ole al kulana. They said, he's right. We're going to lose our power tefillah. Not worth the chance. Wow. They pull him out of the bar. And instead they go sell him to Yishmaelim. If you take just this tonight, ze kvar kedai. Really, what does this mean to us? Comes the great Rebbe, the Toldot Yaakov Yosef. And the Rebbe to Toldot Yaakov Yosef, he tells us, there's so many great tzaddikim in Klali Yisrael, but I might not be one of them. They know how to be mechaven. They know how to have great Kabbalistic kavanot, yichudim, sfirot, olamot. These great rabbis, these great Kabbalists, they know how to be mechaven and tefillah. Me, little me, if I simply have the Pirush HaMilim, I'm already on a good day. A good day. Says the Rebbe Toldot Yaakov Yosef rather. He says, but with the Arizal, you don't need to be a great tzaddik mikubal, but al yedei that you attach yourself to the tefillot of all of Klal Yisrael. Now your tefillah piggybacks on the back of the tzaddikim, on the back of the kiddushim of Klal Yisrael, and it goes up with those yichudim, with those kavanot, with those incredible, lofty thoughts. Suddenly your tefillah transforms and attaches to a level of tefillah that maybe you yourself was never capable of. But now, wow, it's on a rocket booster on the back of these tefillot of the tzaddikim of Klal Yisrael. What an upside, what an incredible ma'alah, that yet again, another reason for the Arizal's concept of taking upon yourself Ahavta l'reacha kamocha before you begin to pray in the morning. Unbelievable. Rabotai, between me and you, as we mentioned already moments ago, if a guy knows that he's entering a place that is very shayach and ragil to be a place of machloket, it's like entering the war zone. Wouldn't you come with armor? No? Wouldn't you at least come with a mindset to be on the defense? Reb Gamliel Rabinovich, he says that if you look today, but maybe because one of the main social experiences that a Jew has in his life is the shul, but because of that, most of the machloket in Klal Yisrael actually stems from the shul. It could be politics, it could be kavod, aliyot, kibudim. There's plenty of places that the Yetzer Hara can dance around really nicely to know how to tick off one person against the other. You just rub slightly someone's pride, and that's it. You don't need more than that. This past Shabbat, we had a sebet, we had a kiddush, a simcha in the shul. So the front doors were still under construction, the front doors are still locked. So everyone has to come down from the basement as you guys came in tonight. One guy who was a guest of this simcha, not from our shul, an older man, he walks up to the front doors that are locked. He's about to turn the knob, and the guard outside tells him, "Sir, the front doors are under construction and locked. You have to go around to the bottom, go through the basement door like everybody else, and go inside." He looks at the guard, the goy, and he says to him, "You want me to go through the basement? I don't go through the basement. I go through the front door." The guy says, "The front doors are locked. It's under construction. It's bolted. Can't open the door if I wanted to. Go through the basement." He says, "No, I don't go through basement doors. I go through the front door. Do you know who I am?" Now the guard looks at the guy like. The guy starts banging on the front door Shabbat morning. Banging! Boom, boom, boom. So one guy that was here in the hallway, he walks up and he peeks through the glass and he tells the guy, "Go to the basement. The combination is," and he tells him the combination. And the guy's screaming at him through the glass, "I'm not going to the basement. I only go to the... Either you open the door or I'm leaving." My gosh, the guy didn't even get into shul yet. Get into shul yet. If this is the narrative, if this is the mindset, if this is where people's minds are, coming into shul with so much pride. Could you imagine I don't want to say chas from the war zone, but the potential machloket that can go on in a shul? Says Reb Gamliel Rabinovich, listen to the Arizal. When you come into shul, the first thing you do, you don't even pray yet. You don't even start to pray daven yet. You start. Hareini mikabel al atzmi mitzvat aseh ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That includes the front doors. That includes the guy in the back that opens the window. That includes the shamosh that constantly works with the thermostat. Includes the chazan, fast or slow. It includes all parts of this puzzle. I'm accepting it. I'm okay with it. And I'm going to let it go. Because I'm going to be part of the tzibur. And I'm going to be sovel. And I'm going to love Klal Yisrael in spite of it all. That was the Gaon's pshat in L'reacha. Rat lecha. You know all about the guy's bad, and you still love him. That's a real friend. Reacha. When the guy starts with V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, he puts his mind into that mindset that I am chilled and ready for anything. I'm already in the mode of mevater. I'm ready to let everything go. He says the minute the person puts his head there is the moment that the person is already coming in with a bubble wrap around him. And he can let it go when things are going to go down, because assure you and me, things are going to go down. You give the Yetzer Hara 5 minutes between the aliyot, between the kibudim, this guy talking, that guy scratching his chair. There's always stuff going on. But if you're going with that mindset, you save yourself everything. And you even save yourself the tefillah as well. And then the last idea that I just wanted to share with you, Rabotai. And this is the idea of the bat ayin. It's unbelievable. He says something really beautiful. He says, you know, we found always, Moshe Rabbeinu is a perfect example. From all characteristics that the Torah describes and is made and testifies, Moshe Rabbeinu, they testify anav mikol adam. That anivut is a key to all other of gadlut, and including tefillah. Says the Bat Ayin, Moshe Rabbeinu's power of tefillah was so great because he was such a great anav. Because the more anav, the more humble you are, the more hashra'at shekhinah rests on a humble anav person. And he writes something fantastic. He says, when a person starts that he loves everyone in Klal Yisrael, and he's looking at the good of people, and he's going to look past it all shortcomings, he's already humbling himself. The moment you humbled yourself by accepting the Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha of Klal Yisrael, it's not anymore that your tefillot goes up to Borei Olam. The hashra'at shekhinah comes down to you. Because now the shekhinah can rest on you. Because you became humble through the Kabbalah, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. This is fantastic. And here is the final whammy. And then adds the bat ayin. And he says, that's not enough. He says, when a person comes in and starts to pray, and he begins with the korbanot, it's ki'ilu he was makrif korban. And when he begins to pray, he's a kohen gadol that just entered the mikdash ma'at, the shul, and he started to daven, and he's bringing korbanot. Shachrit, he's bringing korban, tamid shoshacha. Mincha, he's bringing korban tamid b'abayim. Arbit, he's bringing hekter chalavim b'chule. You're bringing korbanot. You're the kohen. You're coming into the mikdash ma'at. You're about to bring a korban, a tefillah. You're saying the korbanot. Says the Bat Ayin, how could it be that somebody is going to be tantamount to Kohen Gadol, bringing korbanot in a place that's going to be like Bet HaMikdash, if the reason for the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash is no longer eradicated by this person? It's a tarta de satre. It's a contradiction. If this guy is still holding by sinat chinam, that means there's no Bet HaMikdash. If there's no Bet HaMikdash, you're not a Kohen, and your tefillah is not a korban. The only way for you to be a Kohen, your tefillah to be a korban, and the shul to be Bet HaMikdash is if you eradicate the problem that destroyed the Bet HaMikdash. Get rid of the Sinat Chinam, bring back the Bet HaMikdash, you be Kohen Gadol, go out there and now bring your korbanot. How do you do that? Says the Ari, you bring first, you start first with V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You're mitaken, the very sin that destroyed Bet HaMikdash from once upon a time. And now it literally is rebuilt in your shul. With your tefillah, with your korban. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Hashem. Thank you for listening.
Wow.